All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a pretty profound and honestly fascinating journey through the human mind, using a truly remarkable source text called Edifying Parables. These stories were crafted by His Holiness Jagaguru Sri Abhinav Vidyathirthji Mahaswamigal. And you know, what makes this collection so unique is that it doesn't just hand you dry academic philosophy. Instead, it uses these incredibly vibrant, sometimes literally laugh-out-loud funny and deeply relatable stories to hold a mirror right up to our own human nature. So if you've ever found yourself making a totally foolish decision, blowing up in anger over absolutely nothing, or just agonizing over what the right thing to do actually is, you are going to find some immense value here.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit the master's wisdom, the traps of desire, the high cost of anger, the danger of rashness, never too late to reform, and finally wrap up with the nuances of truth.
All right, starting us off with Section 1, the master's wisdom.
Before we get into the parables themselves, we've kind of got to understand the mind behind them. His Holiness Jagaguru Sri Abhinav Vidyathirthji Mahaswamigal. This was a man who was a master of Vedanta, fully enlightened, yet he was incredibly dialed into the physical world around him. Whether he was, say, watching a tiny insect paralyze a grasshopper, or observing a monkey stubbornly refusing to let go of an apple trapped in a branch, his deeply rational, compassionate mind was constantly pulling these profound spiritual lessons out of everyday occurrences. He really saw that nature itself is this massive, beautiful, totally free show filled with lessons, but only if we're actually paying attention.
Moving right along to Section 2, the traps of desire. Desire is absolutely fascinating because it almost never attacks our logic head-on. Instead, it just sort of sneaks up on us. The source text tells this wonderful story contrasting human behavior with animal instinct. So a teenager hears a totally fictional rumor about a pot of gold, and he actually wanders into a highly dangerous forest to find it. On his way, he spots a hunter trapping a monkey. The trap is incredibly simple. It's just a jar with a piece of fruit inside. The monkey reaches in, grabs the fruit, and because its fist is now clenched tight around the prize, it literally cannot pull his hand back out of the narrow jar. The teenager laughs. He thinks the monkey is incredibly stupid for not just letting go of the fruit to save its own life. But moments later, this exact same teenager gets chased by an elephant, falls into a pit with a literal cobra at the bottom, and while he's hanging onto a snapping vine for dear life, he stops to lick a drop of honey dripping from a beehive above him. I mean, he laughed at the monkey, right? Yet his own chase for a mythical pot of gold nearly gets him killed. It really makes you wonder, how often are we laughing at other people's foolishness while stubbornly holding on to our own apples?
It gets even better, or, well, worse, in this other hilarious story about how insidious desire really is. So, a group of monkeys decides they want to earn some spiritual merit by observing a fast for the day. Noble goal, right? But just listen to this flawless, slippery slope logic. First, they say, well, sitting on the ground is dangerous. Let's climb the tree. Makes sense. Then, tigers can reach the trunk. Let's move out to the ends of the branches. Okay. Then, we'll be super weak tomorrow. Let's pluck the fruit right now just to save energy. Then we should probably smell it just to make sure it's not rotten. Then let's just taste a tiny piece, don't swallow, just to ensure it won't give us a stomachache. And yeah, step 6, they swallow the fruit. Fast broken. It is just the perfect illustration of how desire makes us rationalize our own downfall one slippery little step at a time.
The source text also points out something incredibly sobering about the animal kingdom. Animals often perish because of a fatal flaw in just a single sense. Think about it. The deer gets paralyzed by the soothing sound of the hunter's horn. The wild elephant gets trapped by the alluring touch of a tamed female. The moth drawn right into the fire by beautiful form. The fish is caught by the taste of the bait, and the bee gets trapped inside a closing lotus flower because it's completely intoxicated by the smell. Now, if these animals are meeting their doom through just one single sense, think about us humans. We are highly vulnerable to all 5 of them simultaneously. We've got to be incredibly vigilant.
Which brings us to Section 3, the high cost of anger. Okay, so there's this brilliant story about a guy who's just trying to get some sleep, but he feels a rat crawling on his blanket. In a fit of sheer, blinding irritation, he grabs a heavy glass water bottle from his nightstand and violently hurls it at the rat in the dark. Obviously, the bottle totally misses the rat. Instead, it strikes the man's own foot, shatters, and completely soaks his entire bed with water. Still absolutely furious, he blindly reaches out in the dark, actually manages to grab the rat by the tail, and promptly gets bitten. So if desire is the thing that sneaks up on us, anger is the explosion that damages the person who wields it first. It completely strips away our God-given gift of rational thought.
So the crucial point here is exactly what this quote gets at. Take the lesson given to two squabbling students, Shankara and Hari. One student makes a sarcastic joke, so the other student, in a fit of rage, hides the first kid's books. In retaliation, the first student pours water all over the second kid's bed. It creates this absolutely devastating, petty chain reaction of suffering. It's honestly a lot like the Great War of the Mahabharata, where a single insult spirals into centuries of bloodshed. Anger is quite literally a gateway to hell, because it forces us into these impulsive, retaliatory strikes that ultimately just destroy our own peace of mind.
Section 4. The danger of rashness.
Just consider the absolutely chaotic timeline of this young, impulsive merchant. On day one, a total stranger walks up and offers him a super shady diamond deal. Without verifying literally anything, the merchant abandons his shop, leaves his pregnant wife behind, and rides off. Well, by day 5, shocking no one, the stranger robs him blind and abandons him in a forest. On day 6, acting rashly yet again, the merchant decides to hide out in a random abandoned house. Unfortunately for him, it happens to be a known thief's hideout. Soldiers burst in, arrest him on the spot, and sentence him to life in prison. Flash forward 16 years, the real thief finally confesses, and the merchant is freed. So he rushes home in the dead of night, peeks through his own window, and sees his wife sleeping next to a young man. Enraged, assuming the worst, he pulls out his daggers, ready to murder them both. But, thankfully, he pauses. Just for 1 second. He remembers his past rashness. He decides to knock on the door instead, only to learn that the young man sleeping there is the son he never knew he had. An entire lifetime of suffering, all of it caused by jumping before looking.
So, looking at these three massive vulnerabilities of the human mind, our susceptibility to the sneaky traps of desire, the blinding fire of anger, and the reckless destruction of rashness, you kind of have to ask yourself a critical question. If we're all hardwired with these exact same flaws, are we just completely doomed?
Well, that brings us to Section 5, Never Too Late to Reform.
Spoiler alert, we are absolutely not doomed. The Acharya shares this genuinely hilarious but ultimately super inspiring story about accidental enlightenment. We're introduced to two uneducated, incredibly lazy thieves who get chased out of their village. They decide to split up. One guy just falls asleep under a banyan tree. When he wakes up, he finds someone has left a pile of fruit for him, totally mistaking his upright sleeping posture for deep, spiritual meditation. Realizing he's stumbled onto the easiest job in the world, he just becomes a pseudo-yogi. He closes his eyes and rolls some prayer beads whenever someone walks by, just to score free food. Meanwhile, his buddy hides out in a crematorium, accidentally scares some villagers in the dark, and decides, hey, I'm gonna be a pseudo-tantric. So he secretly throws flaming cotton into people's houses at night and then charges them money the very next day to exorcise the ghost. They are both absolute 100% frauds, living a complete lie, just so they don't have to work.
But here is the twist, and it's a beautiful one. A wandering holy man comes along and sees through the pseudo-yogi's act instantly. But instead of exposing him and ruining his whole grift, the holy man just kindly asks the fraud, hey, don't you get bored just sitting here doing nothing all day? The fake yogi's like, yeah, actually I really do. So the holy man simply suggests, well, why not chant the Gayatri mantra in your head every time you move a bead? You know, just to pass the time. The thief agrees, literally just out of sheer boredom. But incredibly, the power of that mantra is so immense that over the course of months, it genuinely begins to purify his mind. He stops faking it, he stops caring about the free food, he actually transforms into a true spiritual master. He even gets that same holy man to help out his friend, the fake tantric, who also ends up reforming himself by learning proper temple worship. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that no matter how flawed your past actions are, it is never ever too late to change course.
All right, final stretch. Section 6, The Nuances of Truth.
So we've tackled our flaws, we've talked about redemption, now let's go a bit deeper, far beyond a child's basic understanding of right and wrong. We're taught from day one to always speak the truth. But let's ask a highly provocative question based on this text. Is it ever okay to lie, or to choose complete silence over speaking a factual truth?
To answer that, let's look at this truly bizarre celestial story the Icarios tells. Picture this. 3 men are riding a celestial vehicle straight to heaven. They look down and see a snake about to eat a frog. The first man shouts down, "Spare the frog, have some compassion," while the snake curses him for denying it its natural food, and that man instantly falls to hell. Seeing this, the second man says, "Hey, the frog is natural food. Go ahead and eat it." The frog then curses him for his cruelty, and boom, he too falls to hell. The third man sees this whole situation play out, recognizes the completely impossible contradiction of it all, and simply remains silent. He is the only one who actually reaches heaven. You see, sometimes inserting yourself into a complex, natural conflict with your very limited human perspective is not the righteous move. Silence is.
The text defines dharma, true righteousness, as something established by the flawless Vedas, not merely by our independent and, let's face it, highly emotional human logic. Think of a judge sitting in a courtroom. A lawyer might make this brilliant, tear-jerking argument that a thief only stole to feed his starving family and that the rich victim isn't even gonna miss the money. Emotionally, we totally agree with the lawyer, but the judge has to follow the penal code because if human emotion suddenly overrides the law, society collapses. In that exact same way, spiritual laws, dharma, require a much higher standard than just our sympathetic human reasoning.
The ultimate nuance here is actually delivered by Lord Krishna himself to the warrior Arjuna. Yudhishthira, who is bleeding and in immense pain, wrongly assumes that Arjuna had killed the enemy commander, Karna. When Arjuna told the blunt truth that he hadn't actually done it, Yudhishthira furiously insults Arjuna's magical Gandiva bow. Now Arjuna had previously sworn this totally rash vow to kill anyone who ever insulted his bow, so hearing this he literally draws his sword to murder his own brother. Krishna steps in and stops him, explaining that true dharma is deeply complex. Sometimes blurting out a highly distressing truth to a sick, vulnerable person is a sin, and sometimes breaking a foolish, rashly made vow is the highest form of righteousness. Truth has to be pleasant, beneficial, and aligned with the ultimate good. It isn't just a blind, robotic recital of facts.
Which leaves us with this one crucial question to reflect on. We've seen exactly how easily desire tricks us, how anger just burns our own house down, and how rashness can ruin a life in seconds. But we've also seen the incredible power of reform and the deep, beautiful complexity of true righteousness. So armed with this ancient yet deeply practical wisdom, how are you going to navigate the traps of your own mind today? Think about it. Because the stories you tell yourself will, ultimately, become the reality you live.